Hello everyone and welcome back to Cooking with Suzanne. Today we're going to make a Bolognese sauce, a classic Bolognese sauce which originated in Bologna, Italy, and it is served in almost every restaurant in Bologna and in the surrounding towns of Bologna. So we're going to start with very basic, simple ingredients, and there are not a lot of ingredients in a classic Bolognese. We start with a mirepoix. And it's about 1 large onion. All are very nice and finely diced, and I will come up close so that you can see the dice of the vegetables. They're all pretty finely diced, about a 1/4 inch dice, I would say. And here is the onion. So it's basically 1 large onion is about 1.5 cups of onion. And in my pot, I have 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil and 2 tablespoons of butter. We want some nice flavor to go into this sauce. So we'll start with the onions. Now, I've also made a Bolognese sauce that has lots of herbs and tomato paste and a lot of other ingredients. I even would put nice sweet Italian sausage into it. But it's a delicious sauce, but that is not a classic Bolognese sauce. And actually in Italy, I think they call it Bolognese. So we'll start with the onions, and I'm just going to saute the onions until they're translucent. And then we will go ahead and add the carrots and celery. You want to sweat the vegetables. We're not looking to caramelize them, so I'm just going to take about a 1/2 teaspoon of diamond kosher salt. And then once that starts to become translucent, about 2 to 3 minutes, we can add our carrots and celery. So let's talk about the other ingredients that goes into a Bolognese sauce. The liquid, milk. So here for this recipe, I'm using 3 cups of whole milk. Also 3 cups of a dry white wine. And then tomatoes. These are Italian imported tomatoes, which they're whole tomatoes that I have diced up, and I also use all of the juice that's in the can. And I have here 4.5 cups, 3 cups of milk, 3 cups of wine, 4.5 cups of the tomatoes, which is about 2 28-ounce cans. And if you can get the San Marzano tomatoes, those are really ideal. But you just want a good imported tomato, something with lovely flavor and good amount of acidity. So this is doing really well. I don't have it on too high. I think at this point I can now add the carrots, and I'll turn it up just a little bit just to get it going because I'm adding more vegetables to the pot, but then I will turn it back down. And the celery, which both were about 2 cups is what you're looking for, or a pint. So let's just give that a stir. It looks beautiful already. And then we can talk about the meat that's going to go in this sauce. So here's the beef. So for the amount of vegetables and the amount of liquid, you need 2¼ pounds of beef. And you can, because pork is very, very important in Bologna, use it a lot in their cooking. If you would like a little extra flavor in your Bolognese sauce, you can do 2 parts of beef to 1 part of ground pork, which is what I put here. I love the flavor of the pork, so I have 2 parts of ground beef. And you don't want it super lean. You do want it to be marbleized because that fat is going to give your sauce a wonderful flavor. And also the texture is really, really nice here. So let's just give that a stir. This is doing pretty well. And then we're going to add our meat. Tagliatelle is a pasta that would definitely often be served in restaurants with this sauce. So that's what we're going to have with it tonight. And now we can go ahead and put our meat. And you want to break up the meat into the sauce. Let's just pour it all in. Then we can break it up. I actually have a old-fashioned potato masher that I often use for this job because it helps to break up the meat really well. So if you happen to have one of these guys, it works perfectly. Okay, I think I can raise the heat up a little bit because we're going to add the milk. Very shortly. It looks great, and I'm going to come over and show it to you. Hopefully you can see that. So the meat is lightly browned, carrots, onion, celery, and just a tiny bit of salt to this point. Here we go. 3 cups of whole milk. And once the milk starts to bubble up a little bit, I'll lower the heat. In the meantime, I'll get some fresh nutmeg so we can add it after the milk has absorbed. Now I have lowered it, and I'm just going to let this simmer until all the milk is gone. And then we'll put just a touch, about maybe a quarter of a teaspoon of fresh nutmeg. I think we're right where we need to be. This took a good 45 minutes for all of the milk to be completely absorbed, and that's because we're making a good amount here. So I'm just going to show you what it looks like at this point. So all the milk has been absorbed, and now we're going to add the wine and do the same exact thing. I will turn this up so we can get the wine heated. So this is 3 cups of wine, and once it comes to a boil, I will reduce it and let all of the wine absorb into the meat, and when it's completely absorbed, then it will be our last step, which is our 2 28-ounce cans of tomatoes that are, you can either use an immersion blender, to just kind of rough chop them, or if you want it totally, pureed, you can certainly do that as well. But I have it so that there's nice little small pieces of tomato in here. And once we put our tomato in, we're going to put it on the stove, and you do want to stir it every once in a while, and you do want to actually cook it uncovered and at the very lowest simmer that you can get it at. I like to use a diffuser just so that it just every so often bubbles, but does not continuously bubble, because you're going to let this cook for 3 hours, and if it boils too hard, it will totally dry out, and that's not what you want. So this is a copper diffuser that I use. I'm going to put it on the stove, start to heat it up, and once we add our tomatoes, I'll put it on the stove and let that cook for 3 hours. Okay, so here I've added the wine, and by the way, before I finished letting the milk reduce, I did take a nice fresh nutmeg, and I grated some nutmeg into the meat. And about, like, I would say maybe 8 nice little gratings over there. Okay, so this is boiling away, so let's get this to a simmer. And this, you do want it to boil very gently, but continuously boil until all the wine is gone. And then when the wine is gone, we will add our 2 cans of tomato. We will cook our pasta, and the only other ingredient you will need is a nice piece of Parmesan Reggiano cheese, grated cheese over the top, and you are good to go. Your meal will be complete. Okay, so we'll be back. Let this simmer. You can stir it every once in a while. It's what I did with the milk. Every once in a while I went in, gave it a stir, and this you want it to continuously simmer until all of the wine is gone. Okay, be back soon. So now we're on to our final step. All of the wine is completely evaporated into the meat and vegetables, and we are ready to add our tomatoes and the juice of the tomatoes. And the meat looks absolutely beautiful. It looks great. And there is a little bit of fat in the pot, which you do want to keep because it's going to add some really nice flavor to the sauce. So that's what it looks like at this point. And now we are at our final stage. And there we go. And at this point, I will add some salt, some kosher salt. And when I show it to you, you will see clearly that this is a meat sauce, not a tomato sauce. So let's put in, I think we can put in about a teaspoon of diamond kosher salt. If you want to add a little bit of black pepper, you can add a little bit in here. While we're waiting for this to be finished, just keep in mind, if for any reason it starts to stick as it's reducing, you can add a little bit of water because you don't want it to stick or burn. Maybe that means, however, that your flame is still yet a little too high. It is difficult without a diffuser. It's really nice to have that because it really does keep it nice and low for you. But you can add about a half a cup of water at a time if it starts to stick to the bottom. But you want to make sure that all that water does get completely reduced by the end. So I'm going to just give the sauce a little taste, mainly just for the salt. Make sure we put in enough salt with the tomatoes. I think it could use a little bit more salt. I'm just going to add another half teaspoon, and then we can taste it at the very end and see if it needs anything else. So let's show you what it looks like. Here it is, and I think you can see it's a lot of meat and a little bit of tomato in comparison. So this will go on to the stove, and in the meantime I'll cook up some pasta, grate some Parmesan cheese, and we'll be ready to serve it up. 2 things that are very important to remember during the 3-hour cooking time: cook it uncovered, cook it very, very low, stir it every once in a while, and if it gets too dry, just add a little bit of water. And that's it. Okay, so our beautiful Bolognese is done. It cooked exactly in 3 hours. I tasted it. It's absolutely wonderful. The meat is so tender and so delicious. And as you can see, it's all meat. You know, there's there's not much sauce to it. It's really just all of the meat and the vegetables, which looks fantastic. So I just cooked up some pasta, and it is important to know that in Bologna, when they do serve the Bolognese, it's never with spaghetti. It's always with an egg pasta, like the Tagliatelle here. So I'm just going to first put a tiny bit of butter into the pasta, and we're just going to toss the pasta with the butter first, and then we will add some of the sauce and then finish it off with a little bit of Parmigiana cheese. Okay, that looks wonderful. Makes the pasta nice and rich. And then we'll add some sauce. And at this point, of course, you want to toss your pasta with your Bolognese. And I do have my water, and if you felt that you needed it to have a little bit of broth, you can certainly add a little bit of pasta water, but that's not how it's served in Bologna. It's always exactly like you're going to see here. So then just we'll give it a twirl. See how much of this we can actually get into our bowl. Have a nice mound of pasta, and you can just use this spoon. There's plenty of meat here. I'll add a little bit of the meat right to the top. And of course my bowl is nice and warm. I had it on the stove. It's important that you have a nice warm bowl to serve your pasta in so it doesn't cool off too quickly. And then I have some Parmesan Reggiano cheese, and you can of course serve this at the table or just finish it right here. And that is it. Here is your pasta bolognese. I am telling you, this is absolutely delicious. Now we get to taste, which is the best part. And of course, a nice glass of red wine would go really well with this. Don't want to have too much here, but let's give it a taste. Delicious. So good. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. Definitely give it a try. I think you'll really enjoy it. And we'll see you again. And let me know if you're interested in tiramisu. We'll do that in the next one. Okay, take care everybody. Be well.